welcome on board. Now, special edition sort of on the show this morning because I'll be having one of the #1 labor leader in the country, the president of the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, TUC, Comrade Engineer Festus Osifo, who also doubles as the president of the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Pengassan, who will be joining me virtually on the show this morning. Let's look at the economy of Nigeria, the welfare of workers, the minimum wage, everything embedded on the Nigeria economy. And I have joining me Comrade Festus Osifo. Comrade, good morning and good to have you on the show this morning.
Yeah, good morning, Lawrence. We're still in place to say Happy New Year to you and Happy New Year to your viewers.
Thank you very much, Comrade. We've been on this trip for a very long time, but thank God we're finally here.
Yeah, a lot of activities and commitments here and there. Yeah, nice to see you once again.
Absolutely, thank you very much, Comrade. So let's start up the conversation because I know you're a very busy person, so that you can attend to other issues. Now, Comrade, as one of the #1 labor leaders, you being the president of the TUC and your counterpart in the NLC, Comrade Joe Ajero, would you say the year 2024 that just ended was a good year in terms of the economy of Nigeria, the welfare of workers, minimum wage saga, so many issues we need to talk about? But tell us, are you guys comfortable with how 2024 panned out? Because what you say now would definitely be what every worker in Nigeria would definitely say that is what it is. Just give us a brief, Comrade.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lawrence. I think all parameters and all indices actually point to the fact that the year 2024 was not particularly a good year, not just for the workers, but for businesses and for the entire Nigerians, or I don't really like using the word absolute. For a higher number of percentage of Nigerians, I could say that the year 2024 was not particularly rosy because, when you are discussing about the issues of economy, you look at the parameters. When you look at them, are you talking about inflation? Are you talking about GDP growth? Are you talking about the purchasing power parity? Are you talking about the value of the naira that an average worker earns? Are you talking about the cost of transportation to work? Are you talking about the cost of food? So when you look at the entire parameters, there's just one conclusion, and that conclusion was that the year 2025 was not a rosy year. The year 2024 was not particularly rosy, and that we had a lot of challenges as far as the economy and socio-political life of every Nigerian was concerned.
Okay, Comrade, now let's look at the one that has been a burning issue, the minimum wage issue, which it dragged for so long in the year 2024. The labor union said 650,000. From 650, it fell down to 70,000 naira, which is where it stands currently. And Nigerians are saying that is not good enough. What was really the parameters you guys used in getting from 650 to 70,000 naira that cannot buy a bag of rice? When minimum wage was 18,000 naira, a bag of rice was sold for 6,000, 7,000 thereabout. But now it is 70,000. A bag of rice is selling for more than 100,000. So it means that an average worker have to save up to like 2 to 3 months salary before he can buy just a bag of rice. We're not talking about cooking oil. We're not talking about other things that follows. How did you guys arrive at this parameter of 70,000, Comrade?
So that is actually the challenge that comes with inflation.
Okay.
So whenever you are discussing, minimum wage is part of the conversations that we had in 2024. When you are discussing a collective agreement, which minimum wage is part of it, there are some parameters that guide the direction that you would go. And that parameter that guides it's actually inflation. So now when we started the conversation, the reason we submitted 615,000 naira was actually because we were pushing that government should look at the issue of minimum wage, of living wage. But government on their part was saying no, that what they can afford as at that time was the minimum wage using the indices of inflation. So, but we knew that if we go with the indices of inflation, that the minimum wage cannot be more than 75,000 naira. So we have some crisis in Nigeria. And what is that crisis? If the NBS, the National Bureau of Statistics, if they release an inflation figure, the challenge that we have had that we could term as crisis is that that inflation figure as released by National Bureau of Statistics does not really tally with what we have there in the general public. For example, they will tell you that food inflation was 40%, but you know very well that when you go to the market, that you have to spend ×2 in purchasing a particular item. That is about 100% in some cases, and in some cases even more. So when we got to the table, like what is used internationally in having conversations around wages, it actually, you adjust for inflation. But when we did our calculation, we realized that when we adjust for inflation, we cannot get above 74 to 75,000 naira. Because if you look at the trend of inflation, when the last minimum wage was signed, when it was 30,000 naira, if you adjust for inflation in it was signed in 2019. So if you adjust for inflation in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and April 2024, you are going to come down to somewhere around 74,000 naira. But so in having such conversations, our argument was that the figures from NBS is quite different from what we have there on the street, and that devaluation has also had a serious bite on the value of naira. But government on their own made the argument that National Bureau of Statistics is the body that keeps data in Nigeria, and that is what we'll go with. And we also knew that the argument we were putting forward will be a bit difficult to push through because every country in the world has their statistics body, has a body that releases the statistics figures about inflation, GDP growth, and all that. And in Nigeria is NBS. So finally, we now had to settle for the inflation figure as released by NBS over the years. Okay. And if you do the calculation based on that, the minimum wage of 30,000 naira in 2019, if you adjust for inflation over this time, is going to be around 74,000 naira. The calculation is very easy to do. Okay. So those were some of the things that guided us. Okay. But 70,000 naira, as when we negotiated it, we knew very well as well that the value was not up to where the value of 30,000 naira was.
As at then?
We had, yes, as at then. Okay. So we had to now live with the inflation figure as released by NBS, because there is no other statistics that we could use. When Absolutely. We put sorry, let me end here. When we put the fact out there that, okay, the effect of devaluation. Yes. So they said that the effect of devaluation and all that those are what we feed into the inflation that is being released by NBS. And if you do that calculation, you could see that 70,000 naira from 74,000 naira was just about 4,000 naira different. In general, negotiations all over the world, it's actually a science whereby you have some fundamental considerations that goes into it. Okay. Again, when we negotiated it then, when we signed when the law was passed as at July, compared to where we are today, the inflation has also risen. Absolutely. Even if in July We could buy a bag of rice at about 70,000 naira.
Then, as at
Today,
that time,
you can no longer afford it.
that.
So it's a conundrum, yes.
Okay. Now, comrade, there is this talk everywhere on the street of Nigerians that it is like the labor unions, the NLC, the TUCs are like toothless bulldogs that can only bark but can never bite. Gone are the days of labor unions, the time of Michael Imodu, Wahab and Zeribe and Goodluck and the likes when they were heading the labor union. That after you guys go for a meeting, possibly in the villa, that they shake your hands or send messages to your mail. When you announce you're going on a strike today, in the night of the next day, you said you shelved the strike. Is this really true, comrade, that the labor unions seem to be a toothless bulldog?
So the challenge that you guys have in the media and most Nigerians have is that they only believe that labor unions, whenever you go on strike, that is when you are working.
Okay.
But really, it is not like that.
But that's the perception of a lot of persons that you have to go on strike.
No, it's perception of our non-members.
Okay.
It's the perception of non-members because our function is to work for our members, Lawrence. That is our primary function.
Okay.
I am the president, by the grace of God, of Pengasan.
Yeah.
And Pengasan today, when you meet an average oil worker, he won't have that perception. An average oil and gas worker knew the impact that we have made in their lives since the devaluation and the current economic downturn started.
Okay.
We have had companies that we've been able to negotiate 250% salary increment for. We have had companies that we've been able to negotiate 200% increment for. And if you know the pay of an average oil and gas worker, 200% means that is pay that he was earning as of June 2023. That is pay that he was earning as of November 2023. Is currently multiplied by 3 today. So if you go to such worker, the worker is going to tell you that his life is much more better. Today in Pengasan, we have different subsectors, from the services to the producers to the government agencies. The song is literally the same. But what Nigerians have been, we used to say that the function of a labor leader in democracy is a little bit different from when there is military dictatorship. When there is military dictatorship, it means that the military junta or the head of the military regime does not consult anybody. There is no legislator. The judiciary is almost in comatose. So the military junta brings decree, and that decree, you don't consult with Nigerians. So you just wake up and you come up with decree. So when that happens, the labor in most cases will react. The labor becomes an unofficial opposition government in military regime.
In the military regime.
But in democracy, the role of labor is a bit different. Because, for example now, look at the tax bills that we are discussing about.
It
is before National Assembly, right?
That's true.
The president conceived it and sent it to the National Assembly. But if it is military, it should have since been passed into law
without consultation.
The labor will start reacting. So Paimodu and all the lights were there during colonial regimes and mostly also during the military regime. If you go to America, Mr. Lawrence, you will not even know their labor center. If you go to most developed world, you don't know about their labor center. All you have in those world is, if you go to the US, you hear about Republican and Democrat. Absolutely. They checkmate each other. They play, one is a power, one is playing opposition.
Checkmating the other.
If you go to the UK, it is also like that. That is how democracy grows. It is not, the labor unions are not opposition government. The labor unions are supposed to be there to promote the plight, most especially of their workers, then by extension, the downtrodden Nigerians. So the role of labor union is not equivalent to that of the opposition. So the opposition in Nigeria must wake up. In labor, we do our work as dictated by law.
Okay.
I've told you what is happening in Pengasan.
Yes.
Then my colleagues spread across the other 40 affiliates of TUC. They are doing everything possible on a daily basis to improve the plight of their members.
Okay.
But let me draw your allusion. You know, at a time, I had a privilege of taking a particular course in Harvard. So when I was in the class, I asked the instructor who was teaching us negotiations that why is it that the people out there's always a mutual distrust between them and the labor leaders. So the professor then told me something that, you know what always happens? Because when you are going for negotiations, if, for example, you want to settle for 2 naira, you will not submit 2 naira. You are going to submit 10 naira because there must be room to bargain. Then also, those that you are negotiating with is going to tell you that they will give you 1 naira.
What 1 naira?
So because you have told the public that all you want is 10 naira.
That's true.
And the public did not know that you have built some markup in it in order to have room to negotiate. The public would be expecting 10 naira. But you knew that you have to increase your negotiating power by submitting 10 naira. So by the time you now agree to 2 naira, they will say, no, you have so it is like that. So, and she also said that it's applicable all over the world. That is not just because I felt as a then that it was a Nigerian problem. So she now gave us some case studies of what do happen in the UK, in the US, in Germany, and all that. So it is a cross that we have to bear. But overall, in all these, there are governing principles around negotiation. So when the negotiation ends, you pick the outcome and you compare with the governing principle. Did they meet those particular principles? If the answer is yes, then we move on. But one of the things that we are advocating, for example, is also that, like this one minimum wage you talked earlier, is also that on an annual basis, instead of us, because our inflation is about 35% currently.
Absolutely,
I mean, by 15th of 34.6. You know, from 34.6, we are expecting it to hit above 35%. Since we negotiated the last minimum wage, a lot of things has moved. If you look at July last year, what was the prices of items in the market? And what are the prices today? A lot of things have moved. So one of the advocacies that we have been making since late 2024 is that let government not wait for 3 years to do wage adjustment. These adjustments should be done as per inflation on an annual basis. For example, currently we are in January. So every January, what you need to do is to apply the adjusted inflation to what the minimum wage is. Instead of you to wait for 3 years, so January you apply it, the next January you apply it, you know, so you keep doing this subsequently so that the purchasing power of the workers could be enhanced.
All right, comrade, now let's look at the workers for 2025. Because I wanted us to just have 1 or 2 conversations about the outgoing year before we now look at this year, 2025, that we are in already. What will be the welfare of workers in Nigeria as a number 1 labor leader in terms of the implementation of the minimum wage? Because as it stands, you and I know that they've not started the implementation. Even the federal government haven't started. I saw on the papers this morning one of the headlines where the trade unions and the labor union were saying you're going to meet with those states that haven't started paying and all that. Then that's on one hand. Then 2, as an expert in the energy sector, you are an engineer by training. The Warri refinery and Port Harcourt refinery, are they working? Because many persons have this mindset that it's a blending plant and it's not a refinery. Let's put all this together before we begin to wrap up the show this morning, because I'm aware you have other engagement to attend to. The welfare of workers for 2025, implementation of the minimum wage, and the refinery.
That's a loaded question, a 3-in-1 question. Lawrence, I think that it is our responsibility to educate Nigerians that all the labor union does is not just about minimum wage. And also that minimum wage is actually the barest minimum. That on a daily basis, each union leaders, most especially those in the private sectors, they are going from one boardroom to another to negotiate for the pay of workers. I just told you some of the things we are doing in Pengasan. My counterpart in Kamsa is doing the same thing. That in Foktob is doing the same thing. That in textile is doing the same thing. I could go on and on and on. But these are done behind the scenes. It is only when there is strike that the cameras will be invited, that the pressmen will be interested. But when we go from boardroom to boardroom, when we go from from one negotiating table to another to sign enhanced pay package for our members, you are not there. And because there is no fight, because there is no issue whatsoever, agreements are signed, a memorandum of understanding are reached, CBA are concluded. On your part, you will not even know what is happening. Okay. I have just challenged you to check across the various private sectors. They will tell you the role that we are playing. But in looking ahead in 2025, we understand that our function is not just from the private sector alone. Okay. It is also for those that are in the public sector. So we must look at the weakest link, and be able to do everything possible to address their plight. And that is why the issue of the minimum wage and as applied in the state is also very, very important. I could tell you today that almost all the federal parastatals and agencies are implementing a new minimum wage. But it is actually some of the states that are not implementing. Today, we have about 3 or 4 states that have not signed MOU to implement the new minimum wage. So it's our responsibility to push, to ensure that those states they comply, to ensure that those states they start implementing the new minimum wage. We are even encouraging them, because when you say minimum wage is 70,000 naira, that is the floor. Okay. A lot of states, as you may have heard, Lawrence, they are currently doing 75,000, 80,000.
Some are doing 80, some are doing 85.
As the case may be. Yeah. So minimum wage is the minimum floor. It doesn't mean that you cannot do above. Rivers State, Lagos State, and the likes, they are doing much more than the floor of 70,000 naira. Just the same thing as well. If today you are joining a bank, you want to work in a bank, you want to work in oil and gas, you are working in food and beverage, the starting package will be maybe times 4 or times 5 of what the current minimum wage is. So minimum wage is actually a floor, and it is designed for people in grade level 1, step 1. So it is the barest of the poor. And remember, even if you have a primary school certificate and you start working at primary school, you are going to start from grade level 2. That means that literally there is nobody that actually start from grade level 1, step 1. So that is why where we are much more interested is what we call the consequential adjustment. How do we, that minimum wage was about 133% increment. So how will it be applied from people from grade level 2 to the director cadre? That is our main interest. And in the state, we are putting an eye in several states. A lot of states have signed MOU, but there are still few states to go. So now, coming to the refineries. You know, I'm from the oil and gas. I've spent about 20 years in the oil and gas sector. And I could confirm to you that Pengasan participated actively in the refinery.
Comrade, let's go on a short break for a minute before you conclude your conversation. Just for a minute, comrade. All right, welcome back, and thank you for joining me on the program, Still Business Rendezvous. And I still have my guest who has been having a conversation with me, Comrade Festus Osifo, the president of the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, who also doubles as the president of the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Pengasan. So, comrade, you were drifting, or rather answering to the oil and gas sector, the refinery, before we went on that break. You can continue, comrade.
Yes. So as of today, Pengasan participated, immensely in the rehab process. So our members in Port Harcourt Refinery, in Warri Refinery, so we participated. And the leadership of both Pengasan and NUPENG also served in the steering committee of the rehabilitation in Port Harcourt and the quick fix in Warri, and the current quick fix also going on in Kaduna. And we could authoritatively confirm that the refineries are working. The old Port Harcourt refinery, we visited the refinery, and we inspected the entire process.
Comrade, you said authoritatively.
Yeah. Yes, correct.
I'm quoting you.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe you could have seen a video where
when you went on a tour. I saw that. Yes, I did. You were part of that delegation.
So we inspected from the control room. See, when a plant is working, nobody can deceive you. It's very simple. When you go to the control rooms, you are able to see the pressure, the temperature, the firing of a burnant, the lines, how the processes are being run. It is very simple. So from the control room, we went to the plant to inspect the plant and also the product that were being produced. Like as I have said in several fora, blending is part of refining operations. Blending is not alien to refining operations. There is nowhere in the world where a single process is going to give you PMS. A single process can give you kerosene, which we often refer to as DPK. A single process can give you AGO, which is diesel. A single process can give you ATK. You just need little refinement here and there. But the PMS, at the end, the product that you are going to get, which is called naphtha, is now going to pass through some other series of processes in order to obtain the quality of petrol that you could use in your car today. So blending is actually part of the refining process. So there is nothing wrong in passing your crude through the distillating unit, and you will now carry out other series of processes to now get the final PMS product that have the right octane number, which actually specify the quality of the PMS that will go into your car. So I could tell you authoritatively that these refineries as of today are working. Are they working in full capacity? The answer is a no. Efforts being made to rev it up so that it will get to that 90-95% performance in terms of installed capacity. The answer truly is a yes.
Okay, comrade, we need to wrap up now. But your message to Nigerian workers, you are the #1 labor leader. A lot of persons are watching you right now, listening to everything you've said since we started this conversation. What will be your message for the year 2025? Because everybody cried last year, there's hunger in the land, things are hard, times are tough. But as the #1 worker, when they hear your word, definitely they will have a sigh of relief. Send a message to the viewers out there that are watching you right now on the show.
Yes. Part of what I want to say is that we are entering a new year.
We've entered already.
Like this, I mean, we're just starting a new year. Today is the 6th of January, first Monday of the year. And let us keep hope alive. In everything we do in our respective corner, let us keep hope alive. And let us be hopeful that the year will be much more better. But on our own path, we will continuously do everything possible to defend the interests of workers, both in the private and the public sector. Because for us, the issues are common. We attend the same market. The cost of food in the market has skyrocketed. Today, inflation is nearing 40%. Today, we have both macro and microeconomic challenges.
True.
It's our responsibility to hold not just government, but the employers of labor, both in the private and the public sector, accountable to ensure that the plight of workers does not continuously go down south.
Thank you very much, Comrade Festus Osifo. By coincidence, we answer the same surname. Thank you very much for joining me on the show. We hope when we'll call upon you for national issues like this, you'll be available to talk to us. Thank you very much for joining us. That's Festus Osifo, the president of TUC and Pengassan. Thank you for your time.